All right, Shalom. It's your brother Quishab coming back at you with another lesson. Now, before I get started, I want to give all praises, glory, infinite honors unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rechak Wadash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who taught me this true and rule well. And peace, blessings, and salutations be to the hopefully elect, as well as those that believe in the gospel, and may you endure to the end, Lord willing. All right. And I just wanted to get into a quick history, just some brief history going into the whole slave trade, all right, down here, okay. And this is some info I brought out a while back. It's, something that I walked by one day, and I took some pictures of it because it was real interesting to me. All right. And at the end of the day, it's a reason why these devils, have to pay back what they have done to the children of Israel. All right. One, because it's prophecy, but two, all right, the things that you have done to the hand or the people of the Lord, all right, the hands that you have laid on the people, man, is in the things that you have done, you've committed atrocities, man. All right. A horrible thing. Okay. And you, at the end of the day, you're going to pay for it. All right. But, I would just read this. All right. And just to show, that the slave trade, because there are actually some people out there that don't think that this actually happened. All right. But down here, especially, okay, it happened all over. It was a transatlantic slave trade, right? In which it was is three, all right? It was people, not people, but Israelites, all right? Even, heathens and different things being bought, being sold, all right? But mainly Israelites, all right? And especially here in America, you even had Gadites being shipped off to Europe in different places, man. It was multiple different areas, right? In which I should have pulled up that picture that I have saved with the directions of it's like a map of the transatlantic slave trade to show you, how many different directions people were going during this time, all right? But I just want to hone in on a part here in Louisiana, all right? Because down here especially, there were multiple plantations that were the biggest plantations to ever exist, all right, which is why you have a lot of so-called Negroes, all right, a lot of so-called Haitians, a lot of so-called Benjamites, man, here, all right. But it says in 1808, the U.S. Congress abolished the international slave trade. All right. Now it says contributing to a significant increase in the domestic slave trade or the trafficking of human beings within the boundaries of the United States. Now, we know those human beings were Israelites, man, so-called Negroes, all right, Native Americans, and Latino descent, man, all right. Now, it says during the 57 years that followed, an estimated 2 million men, women, and children were separated from families and forcibly moved by slave traders and owners. The largest numbers were brought from the upper South to the lower South via overland and water routes. It says New Orleans was made the center of this trade, resulting in more than 50 documented sites. More enslaved people were sold here from slave pens, public squares, government buildings, church properties, city taverns, private residences, auction houses, and even ballrooms or luxury hotels than anywhere else in the U.S. All right? And that's why I say chiefly down here, man, now it says 2 million, all right, in which it was probably way more than that, all right? It was probably way more than that. And it's something I could attest to, old building, where I used to work down there in the what they call the French Quarter down here. these buildings, a lot of those buildings were called slave exchanges, man. All right. Now the hotel is one of the most luxurious hotels down there in the quarter. All right. And on the side of it, in which they can't really paint it over because it's a so-called historic property, but you can see the what do you call it? Like the scratching of the word slave and exchange under it, right? And you have to look at it real fine, all right? Because they tried their best to scratch it off, all right? And all of these back rooms, all right, these underground doors, all right? Because I actually used to work there, so all of these underground doors and back doors and different things. When I first started working, I used to get goosebumps all the time because, you can clearly see that, this used to be, you got a basement and everything, and you can clearly, understand what that used to be, right? Just a quick, testimony, from what I've actually seen, and to know that these, it said luxury hotels, all right, government buildings, all right, a lot of these buildings that's down there, were slave exchanges, man. I forget the name of that lady, all right, that cruel witch, of the French Quarter. I forget her name, but brothers go into it down here, whenever we go into this topic, and how cruel she was to Jake, man. Sewing men's mouths together. It was doing all manner sorts of wickedness, man. All right, and that's why I say, man, you devils gotta pay. All right. They didn't say they were willingly moved. They said they were forcibly moved, man. All right, being bought and being sold. Well, that's going to come back in a play in the kingdom of heaven, man. All right. The same way you bought and you sold us, we going to buy and sell you, man. All right. But and this is another picture I took. It says Solomon Northup, 12 years a slave, in which this guy, he was an actual free man. I'll read it real quick. Is the point. It says, and what Jake should know about Solomon Northup, man. All right. Now, I said Solomon Northup, a free man of color. He was a so-called free man, right? From New York, was sold into slavery in 1841. Northup's story is chronicled in his 1853 memoir, 12 Years a Slave, and in the award-winning movie by the same name. So they actually sold this guy into slavery just because he was down there, man. All right. Now, this is the site of a notorious slave pen, all right, in which this guy, Theophilus Freeman, all right, he was over it, or he owned it, but he was the same guy who took Solomon Northup, who was a quote-unquote free man, and sold him into slavery, Hey, man, that's why I say, man, the things that you devils, the atrocities you done, man, you got to pay for it, all right? Now, I would say, right here, it says, this is the back of it from the first image. It says, within 1 block radius of this marker were the New Orleans offices, showrooms, and slave pens of over a dozen slave trading firms, including Franklin, Armfield, Ballard, Hope Hall, Slatter, John Hagen, Joseph Bruins, and others. Their networks, which undergirded the antebellum economy, stretched from Norfolk, Baltimore, Louisville, Memphis to New Orleans to Natchez to Galveston, Pensacola, and beyond. So this slave trade that they had going on, all right, it stretched all over, man, the United States. You see? All in the name of what? Making money. All right, keeping these people oppressed, you see? But yeah, I just wanted to go into that information. That's pretty much it. I get a few precepts, a few things I was meditating on. And we get out of here, man. This Joel chapter 3, verse 3, it says, and they have cast lots for my people and have given a boy for an harlot, a girl for wine, and that they might drink. All right, and that's what they do, man. They had cast lots. You go on the auction block, all right, you got, we have a 6 foot 200. You had that whole clip with Jerry Jones doing that shit, man. All right, excuse my French. But when you go into these topics, it kind of gets you in the spirit of being in a raw state of mind, because, hey, man, we want payback, man. All right? And it's going to be a bitch, too, But it says that they have cast lots for my people, all right? And those are the people of the Lord, all right? You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, man. All right? Who are the Israelites according to the scriptures, all right? And that's what they've done. We have like I was saying, a 6 foot, 200-pound Negro, 24 years old, such and such and such and such, has a good stock. We would start the bidding off at $50, $50. Yeah, can I get $55? Yo, $55, $60. Can I get $65? And that's what they did, man. All right. Now I'm gonna jump down. I read 4 and jump down. It says, "Yea, what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, all the coast of Palestine, will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head." All right, and that's that payback, man. All right, because the Lord is going to pay you back. You see, and it ain't going to be pretty. It says, verse 6. Well, I read 5. All right, I read down. It says, "Because ye have taken my silver and gold, and have carried into your temples and my goodly pleasant things. The children also of Judah and Jerusalem, and the children of Jerusalem, which is the northern and southern kingdom," it says, "have ye sold to the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from their border." All right, and that's what, ultimately, when we were scattered during the diaspora, all right, the siege of Asada, I believe, around 70 AD, when we ran off into the western parts of Africa, they ultimately took us from there, all right, and put us on slave ships, man. As it says in Deuteronomy 28, I think it's 60. Yep, 68, it says, "And Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships." So this is a prophecy, all right? If we did what? Not obey the Lord. And clearly we didn't obey him. So this prophecy had to be fulfilled, all right? And it's not talking about Egypt, all right? It's not talking about Mizraim, okay? It's talking about the spiritual Egypt, as it says in Revelation, the 11th chapter, all right? Which Egypt just simply means bondage, all right? Or a house of bondage. In America is what? The chief place of bondage, man. You see? And you don't need ships to go to Egypt, all right, from Israel, man. Okay? It says, "And the Lord Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you." All right, and we were sold to our enemies, man, for bondmen and bondwomen, which means slaves, man. Okay, and it says no man shall buy you, going into what? Us being redeemed, all right, back into our true power, all right, back to the Heavenly Father, okay, because only Yahushua is going to be the one that comes back and buys us, all right, or redeems us to buy us back again, man. You see? So yeah, we were sold and we were bought, all right, but Yahushua has to buy us, man, for us truly to be freed, all right. Ain't no such thing as a so-called free man back then, all right. That was an illusion, as you can see what happened with the guy Solomon Northrop, man. All right. Now I'm gonna jump back up, and I might jump around a little bit because I wanted to read this in 48. It says Deuteronomy 28 and 48, "Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which Yahweh shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in the want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee." All right, and we have been destroyed, all right? Not physically, but mentally, all right? Spiritually, our people are finished, man. Okay, if it wasn't for Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, all right, as the prophecy, was to happen, for the remnant to come back and, ultimately be saved, then we be destroyed completely, man. All right, because Jake is through. Okay, if it wasn't for the spirit, all right, from Yahweh Shai sending down the spirit to his holy men in these latter times, that we all might be saved. Hey, man, we'd be totally through, man. All right, because Esau has put that yoke of iron upon our neck, which was a physical yoke. Okay, when you go into the history of it, you know these chains were over 50 pounds, man, on our necks, man. All right, 50 pounds on our wrists, man, on our ankles, man, shackled up. You see? But now, you know, we're not in a hardcore slavery anymore. We in a thing called corporate slavery, right? So the yoke now is the entertainment, all right, the entertainment industry, rap, okay, bread and circus, man. And this is how our people are destroyed now for following after these idols, man. You see? And that all that does is keep us further separated from our power, man. You know? But I'm gonna go back to the Joel 3, right? In verse 7, it says, "Behold, I will raise them out of the place whither ye have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your own head." You see, so this is the payback, right? It says, "And I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabians, to a people far off, for the Lord has spoken it." All right, and that's a future prophecy that has yet to come. You see, us actually selling them. Okay, we're going to have you on auction in blocks, man. All right, we're going to sell your sons. We're going to sell your daughters, man. All right, until ultimately you be completely cut off as a nation. You see, and speaking of you Edomites, man. All right, because you other nations are going to get it too. All right, because y'all all had a part in playing a role in enslaving and trading the children of Israel, man. You see, you had the Arabians, the Arabs, who were slavers. You see, who had a known history of being slave traders, man. All right. Hey, all of you nations, man, as it says in Psalms 83, that you had came with one consent. Let me get it real quick. Psalms 83, verse 2, it says, "For lo, thy enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance." All right. And this is the point. It says, "For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee." You see, so they have made a deal. All right. All of us have to make sure we are on one accord so that these blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans don't find out who they truly are. You see, to ultimately cut us off from being a nation, man. That's why I tell you in Zechariah that, you know, you furthered the affliction, Edom, because we know, as it said in verse 6, you at the head of this thing, man. You're the one who's actually ruling. All right. And you have these nations ruling under you, thinking that they're going to that they're getting a piece of the pie, man. Well, pretty soon they're seeing now that they've got a low end of the deal. You see, and this is why they're coming up against you now, right? But I probably ended off in 2 Thessalonians, 1:6, I believe. Yep, it says, "Seeing it is a righteous thing with the Most High to recompense tribulation to them that trouble you." Okay. It says in NLT, "In his justice, he will pay back those who persecute you." So those who put us in chains, all right, shackled us, man. All right. And I'm not even going to get into the things that they actually did to us, while we were under their subjection. That's a whole nother lesson in itself, man. But I just really wanted to bring out this information and ultimately to know that that recompense is coming back to you, man. All right. Those that troubled us, hey, man, that great recompense is coming back in a big way. All right. Even these 2/3 gonna get a piece of the pie. All right. Because when they come back in the kingdom, they're going to be in their right mind and they're going to be putting foot down you Edomites' asses, man. All right. As well as you other nations, too, because You're not exempt. You're gonna be in slavery too, man. You see? But I mean that's pretty cool. That's pretty much the point. I can bring out more precepts, but it's all good. Lord willing, the point has been made. That this lesson was edifying, straight to the point. So with that, let me give our praises, glory, infinite honors unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors once again to your apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings.